Hey guys, welcome back to the First Impact channel. This is David, as always, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Dragon Ball Super Episode 47. Now, I know that I tend to do Mecha on this channel, but I have been doing a Dragon Ball Super podcast, and that podcast is currently on hiatus, and I cannot stop watching this show. So, I felt like I needed to express my opinions on this show and express how much this show is pleasing me and at the same time being an absolute wreck all in one motion. And today I'm going to be playing Dragon Ball Super Butoden 2 just for your guys' viewing pleasure because Trunksu is back, guys. Future Trunks. And there's a lot of emotions going on with that whole situation. Yes, his hair is blue. Yes, everything makes zero sense. And yes, it is absolutely awesome. Now, the thing that's going to be interesting about this whole situation is that, yes, it's confirmed that this is the future Trunks that we saw from the previous series, but there's a lot of continuity issues. But I'm going to get to that here in a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and give you guys just a very small plot synopsis of what's going on right now in Super with this whole Trunks situation and how it's kind of awesome but kind of annoying and disappointing at the same time. So we start this episode with Trunks just running in absolute sheer terror and fear. And that's well and good, and it's kind of exciting. It's a new dystopian situation. We're not exactly sure what's been going on in the past 17 years or so, I believe they said. But we see him running from a character who is somewhat of a demon looking character. And obviously, from what a lot of people have heard, it's a character that everyone's affectionately or not so affectionately calling Black Goku. Although, in this episode so far, we've not seen him mentioned as Black Goku, only Black. Which is kind of like, I'm not really sure where they're going there. I guess maybe they're going to have him be a shapeshifter. Holy shit, Cell's about to just waste me. But that's besides the point. So this whole episode is interesting in many ways, but I have a couple of problems as well. So he's running from Goku, Black Goku that is, and he eventually escapes, I guess. It is said that Black Goku for some reason can't sense his ki at a point, but we'll also get to that in a little bit as well. So Trunks eventually makes it to where Bulma is, and Bulma has been in this secret underground facility developing a certain kind of liquid that enables Trunks to return to the past again. So Trunks is utterly hopeless at this point. Apparently, we haven't really seen him fight this Black Goku figure yet, but he eventually gets the stuff from his mother, and things go wrong as you would expect that to happen. And when it does go wrong, it goes horribly wrong. We see Bulma basically die, from at least from what it's kind of showing us, and that's pretty dark stuff. It's we've kind of had an attachment built to her before, and now we're really having to deal with somebody you care about, regardless of whether it's the same version or not, dying, and it's kind of pretty sad. And this version of Trunks is certainly no stranger to sadness, despair, and awfulness. But I'm gonna go ahead and move on with that. Mai is someone he meets up with in his little travel back to Capsule Corporation, and we see a cat who looks like Dr. Brief's cat, but we can't necessarily say that it is, but it's kind of heavily implied. I've heard a couple of people say that they don't think it is. Shout out to a fellow YouTuber and Twitter user, Geekdom101. I actually just watched his video not too long ago, and he actually had made mention that he thinks it's not Dr. Reeves' cat. And I'm actually very curious to know why that is. But that would be interesting if it wasn't, but it's a nice homage back to the character regardless. And I think a lot of people, at least I felt a lot of feelings with this. But we see Mai and Trunks meet up, and they're clearly still on pretty great terms and almost affectionately staring at each other. Trunks is incredibly worn down, and he is just beaten to death basically at this point. It's pretty well established that there's no food left, basically, or at least not a lot of viable sources for it. Trunks makes a reference to eating dog food, and Mai's just like, "Yep, that's basically the norm," and that's pretty darn dystopian. I mean, for Dragon Ball Super to have such a lighthearted tone right now and to be going that route, it's like, ooh, wow, that's a little heavy. But it's pretty cool either way, and I do enjoy where that's going and how they're really trying to place an emphasis on how desperate the situation is. Um, I have a big problem though, and I know that this is a show made for children, and I get that, but for the sake of argument and just to kind of maybe come from a not so biased perspective, which is hard because I'm a long time Dragon Ball fan in general. But Mai has no business being in this future. I don't really understand how they've retconned it. It's not been explained, and to be completely frank, it probably will not be. At least not in a cognitively functional way. And I say that for many reasons. But here's the thing, and this is actually something we were talking about on the podcast previously. Why is it that Trunks' future doesn't make any sense really to begin with? We get a lot of fans saying that, oh, well, that future, it's actually just the future. It's not an alternate dimension, which it would kind of have to be. And this is only further cementing that logic. Why is it that the situation that caused Mai to be young again, why is that still in effect when Goku is supposed to have already died? And yet he's not in that future, at least seemingly that we know of. And maybe that will be answered with the whole Black Goku situation, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that it's probably not going to be. And that's kind of annoying. And it only leads me to wonder, like, yes, they're saying this is that future Trunks, but is he just another interdimensional, like, iteration of him who went through a similar experience? We don't know. Why is his hair blue? A lot of these things don't make any sense at all. And it's really kind of hard to tell where they're going to go with this, or if they're going to go anywhere that makes sense at all, as I had said previously. So this is kind of a problem. But besides that, there is a pretty great lighthearted moment between Goku, Chi-Chi, the family, Piccolo. And it's pretty nice to see everybody together yet again, and I have really been enjoying those sections of the show, and it's been really fun for me. Goku and Piccolo decide to quote-unquote train. And by that, they basically mean pick a bunch of cabbage slash and or lettuce. And it turns into this whole, like, Dragon Ball reference, which, and this is something that's actually been bugging me about really the series in general. There's a lot of interesting and cool directorial choices, but then there are also horribly poor and almost unloving things thrown into the show. The blatant and rampant use of stock footage from Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball is so horribly jarring as a directorial tool that it's batshit insane at this point. It doesn't make any sense at all, and I really just can't stand that at all. It's so jarring. The animation is so horribly different, and we have a lot of naysayers about Dragon Ball Super's animation quality, and to be frank, it's not been 100% great, and no show is, but it's been pretty consistent, but it's had a lot of flaws, and that would definitely have to be a situation where we're gonna have to consider it a flaw, at least in terms of direction for me. It just doesn't look good, and I know that it's been updated and stuff, but it's still clearly just bad stock footage, and the quality is so different that it just makes no sense. They could have honestly just used a still. They could have done a lot of different things to avoid that situation, but they basically took the lazy way out, and they've been getting a little lazy with some of the animation here and there. And it's been apparently it's just horribly apparent. The previous episode, for instance, and not to tread too much ground on that, but they had a quote-unquote fight with Goku and Vegeta, a copy of Vegeta, and they basically refused to animate, any of it. It's mostly just in the distance, then a bunch of flashing light explosion kinds of thing going on, and that's just ridiculous to me. How are you gonna fight another proxy battle with Vegeta? Another. And then you can't animate it. Like, I don't understand why this is a thing. We at least got a hell of a fight animated in Z when Majin Vegeta, the first instance of fighting a proxy Vegeta without any consequence for the most part, we got a really good fight out of that. And this was really just, it was rushed. It didn't really have a point, and they really chinched out on the animation quality, and really even to bother animating it, which is just ludicrous to me. But back to my whole thought on the rest of the episode, the reference to Dragon Ball was fun and it was nice. But as I said, it was cool, but it was also incredibly jarring from the tone of the episode in general. Like it really kind of came off to me as like they don't know where to go or how to balance the situation or what show they want to be, which is totally fine. I'm really glad that the show's getting a lot of depth to it, or at least trying to experiment with different things that it wants to do and whatever it's trying to accomplish. Um, I think that a lot of the this episode is, it's a lot of time borrowing, and it's not. I feel like the story is just not fully set in stone, obviously, but it's very cool what we do get. And from the animation, other than the stock animation, it's pretty well done. It's really interesting. They're really trying to hide what this Black Goku character really looks like, at least at first. But we see him at the very end of the episode, and he comes up to Trunks and basically he murders Mai, which is inconsequential at this point because she's all over the promotional material, and there's clearly a reason that that's happening. So odds are she's gonna come back, or something ridiculous like that's going to occur. But either way, he kills Mai. Trunks is furious, and he brings out his sword, and this is where a lot of the good animation, at least, relatively speaking, from my opinion, comes from. And it's really interesting to see Trunks battle this guy, but it's very confusing at the same time because Trunks doesn't bother to ascend to any form of Super Saiyan. Um, he charges full on, and maybe that's because, we had talked about the dog food thing, and he had barely had food in a long time. And as I had mentioned earlier, during their conversation with Mai, she actually gives him some meat. And maybe it's because he's weak and tired, I don't know. But to me, it's kind of absolutely absurd that he didn't even bother to transform unless he just absolutely couldn't. We did see some really cool animations with the sword use for Trunks in his battle. I thought that was really interesting and kind of unique. We saw him use energy beams through his sword, which makes me wonder and hope that some of the Tapion story from movie 13 might actually become canonical to some extent. That would be really exciting, and it would give Trunks a different edge, at least in his time and his situation. Um, but we finally see him square off with him, and it's not going well. He's not being horribly beaten or anything, but he's not really doing much damage, and Black Goku finally stares at him and says, "It this time it's your day to die, Saiyan." And I think that that's really interesting as well, that he referred to him as a Saiyan. Are we gonna get another reference to the Tuffles? Is it a new alien race? We see that he's got something similar to a Kaioshin earring or a Patara earring, but he only has one. So that makes me wonder as well, is he this universe's god of destruction? And it also makes me wonder, is he going to be in this Universal tournament, and will this problem ever even really be quashed? I'm starting to wonder that maybe he is incredibly strong and he's an alternate version of Goku that decided to become the God of Destruction. That's just pretty loose, and we don't know, but it seems kind of sort of logical somehow. Maybe if he was brainwashed, I guess. But yeah, it seems like the story's gonna be pretty interesting in its revelations when the time comes. But I think that the Omni King is going to step in during this fight, and I think he's going to put it to a halt, and then he's going to let Goku fight this guy as a testament to his ability and worthiness, I think, is going to be the situation. That is a pretty big guess, and I know that it may seem a little crazy, but it almost, to me, it makes a lot of sense as to where they're trying to go with this. And we know now that we had heard that Whis and they were talking about how there were multiple gods of destruction, and how they may be in the tournament as well, and that's really intriguing to me. That's very interesting. I like that idea, but I'm hoping this doesn't get convoluted and that Trunks isn't just brought in as a cheap prop, because that's sort of seemingly where it's going, and it's going to be hard to tell, and I know that, but it does kind of come off that way, and I'm concerned. But I think that once we see the next upcoming episodes, obviously we'll have a little better of an idea, and that'll be that'll be interesting and hopefully not disappointing. But I really do want to see this story be told in earnest, and I really would actually like to have some episodes maybe explaining what's gone on in this time that's passed, and that would be a great use of what people would quote unquote call filler, which I disagree with because it's story building and character development. But it'd be a very interesting and fun little time to be able to spend some time in that era and understand what's gone on, and maybe hopefully even see some new fighters. I mean, that would be really interesting to see if Trunks has somehow maybe worked with a group in the past before everything had completely gone down. But I think all of these things would be very interesting, and it's going to be hard to see where this is going in the future, but I'm still very much excited for Dragon Ball Super right now. I can't wait until this weekend for the release of this episode. Very, very exciting. And yeah, I just want to see what you guys think about this episode. If you guys would like me to cover more of these episodes that are upcoming, please let me know in the comments. I'm going to have a new subreddit up. It will be Our First Impact. I have a new Twitter account, which is is at First Impact Show. And if you'd like to follow me there, I will be posting times when I'll be uploading, behind the scenes stuff which is basically just a retarded guy with a crown, me, and a couple of other interesting little fan related things. And I'd like you guys' requests and suggestions on what episodes I should do next. This is a new series that I'm starting with Dragon Ball Super, where I'll be playing Super Famicom games that are Dragon Ball related while I cover episodes of Super. I will plan on going into more depth next time if I get a good response from you guys, and if you guys are interested. Please send me some more topics to theorize on other than what I've been discussing, and what your predictions are for the future. As I'd mentioned before, go check out Geekdom 101. He's a great Dragon Ball YouTuber and does a lot of other geeky things in general. He's been on the podcast in our tweets and shout section. And since I'm on a hiatus, I'll be doing some more Dragon Ball Super content and Dragon Ball content in general. So look for that to come in the future, guys. And until then, come back to the First Impact channel where everything is anime.